We're most excited to have Kathy Lancaster from Lancaster Designs with us today to present her review and recommendations for awnings, painting with some renderings, samples of some of the awnings, but I'll let her take you through those. So with respect, I would ask that although this is a question and answer period, I would respectfully ask that you not shoot the messenger, because not everyone will agree with her recommendations or other ideas. But after the presentation of her report, I think if we have time, we'll dismiss Ms. Lancaster and we can have continued discussion in an open forum. Further discussion can commence at the board meeting when we take up that topic on the agenda. Ms. Lancaster.
Thank you all for having me today. Can you hear me okay? So a little background on myself. I've been doing commercial projects and recommendations like this for other boards and residences in Sarasota for about 15 years. I worked on several commercial projects recently, including the First Church downtown in Sarasota. We just did a renovation several years ago from at Temple Emmanuel. We completed a commercial exterior consultation for Smith Law Firm recently with all of their outdoor signage and paint consultations, and numerous other projects throughout the community. Our basis for today's discussion came up from a meeting with Deborah and Bob and myself. They brought me in and we had a discussion about your new paint colors and the different various shape options that were available for the awnings. And then we also had a discussion about the various fabrics that were available for the awnings. And I was asked to make a recommendation on the color, on the shape, and on the type of fabric that we would use based on the architectural elements that are present in your community, as well as those colors that had already been selected for the paint. So I will ask that when you are making your selection and voting, that you try to think of the community as a whole and realize that sometimes this seems like a very personal process as we're picking things out for our community residents. But we need to look at the big picture, and I ask that you kind of look at everything around you and the surroundings and take into consideration something that might not be your personal preference, but that is a preference for your community at large. So my recommendation based on all of these items that had been presented thus far was to do a standard wedge shape awning in the black serge Ferrari fabric. This was based on the value of the materials, the maintenance, and the aesthetics. I really enjoyed the paint colors that you all selected. I thought the whalebone and the pearl were a nice combination and will really bring your property up to today's trends and fit in with the equivalent standards of other properties of this value in your area. I know you were all very concerned about keeping with a Mediterranean feel, and one of the reasons that we selected the black or the concrete was to give it a consistent feeling throughout the property, as opposed to doing multicolored or something that was more colorful. We also discussed painting the enclosures to match with the wall colors, and we spoke with several realtors, and I spoke with several colleagues in the area about the importance of bringing the property up to a more contemporary look, and the feedback that I received helped me make the decision of the selections that I made. The serge Ferrari fabric is a vinyl material. It's very easy to clean. Anything that falls onto that material will just roll off, as opposed to a sombrello or more fabric type material where it will absorb any type of elements from nature. It is slightly more expensive on your upfront cost, about 10% more, but it does require much less maintenance over time. You'll be able to look through your packet and you can see And that this is especially essential, of course, for the residents who aren't here today. You'll be able to see an example of the existing shape with the burgundy color in a rendering, as well as the actual picture of one that has been installed here on the property. We have an option of the oval-shaped awning in the black color and the concrete color, both on a rendering and images of what has been installed here on the property as well. And then we also have an example of the wedge awning in the black and the concrete charcoal color. Excuse me, I mistyped that. And a schematic of what it would look like as well with your new paint colors. As we move into the other topics of the things that I was asked to present conceptual ideas on, one was the guardhouse and how to address the present tile that is around the guardhouse. And my suggestion for an immediate solution was that we could paint the existing tile with a specialty paint that is designed to paint on tile to match the pearl trim, so that we give it a nice consistent look, and that completes that panel that would go around the guardhouse to look like more of a Mediterranean element of a piece of stonework similar to the columns that are surrounding us here. And of course, you would paint the walls of the guardhouse the whalebone color to match the other buildings. A long-term plan would be to retile with an updated tile and updated tile and design in that area. So that can be something that you can discuss when you get to your future budgeting plans. For the out front signage entranceway, it's been suggested that we could do the same I'm suggesting that you do the same concept that we would do on the guardhouse by painting the trim with the pearl color, updating the colors of the lettering. The tile could also be painted around the lettering on the front signage. And eventually, as you move forward and you want to make more changes, or you may decide to leave it, we could also update the font, and you could paint the black and the pearl to match our awnings and integrate that in. Another concept with the black was to integrate it with your light posts. You have other black elements throughout the property, and so this would be something that would help tie all those elements in together. The same would go for a concept idea for your signage by painting the background of the signs for an immediate solution and a budget-friendly solution to match the wall color. And there are some conceptual concepts as we move forward in the future to discuss about updating the font maybe to something a little more contemporary. And that, of course, would include having to change your signage. So that's sort of a budgeting thing that you can continue to discuss in the future as you move forward. There are many options out there with the die-cut laser techniques that you can do, either wood or metal, to update those fonts throughout your signage in the community. And does anybody have any questions about why we made these selections, or why I made these selections, and thoughts that I can address? Sure.
Question. Please come up and use the microphone. Everybody's welcome.
Sure. Sorry, I'll do this and make it easier. Couple of questions.
Sure.
First of all, sorry, thank you. Couple of questions. First of all, did you notice that the whalebone can have a bit of a green tint at different times of the day?
Most beiges do have various tints, and yes, it does have a slightly greener khaki kind of turn to
So
it.
you took that into account in selecting the black
I did.
and the concrete? Okay. Why not terracotta?
I think the terracotta is very dated. That's okay. I feel the terracotta and the burgundy color is very dated. That was a very popular color in the 80s and 90s. It's just, it leaves you all with the same look and kind of sitting back in time. And I think for you all to keep your property values at levels equal to other communities in the area, your look needs to be updated to something to today's standards.
I'd like to ask a question. When before you made the first informal street consultation, We had a long swatch of Ferrari premium vinyl in the terracotta, which I liked. And it seems also there was some interest in that terracotta when it was mounted in the Sunbrella fabric. Of course, there's no similar hue in the Ferrari catalog, so the closest was the Ferrari vinyl. So you weren't too receptive to that. Can you tell us what your concerns were about the terracotta vinyl?
So the terracotta and the burgundy in this umbrella fabric takes a much different feel than the terracotta burgundy tones in the Ferrari fabric, or Ferrari vinyl, excuse me. The Ferrari vinyl has a very plasticky, very commercial feel. It doesn't have the quality that I think your community deserves. It's not, I shouldn't say the quality is lacking because it's the same material. It's the aesthetics that appear. It looks kind of cheap and kind of dated. It's just sort of like a plastic bag almost, just because it's very shiny when it's reddish burgundy color. And I felt that the black or the charcoal had better refractive qualities and looked better with the paint colors that you had selected.
Bring it down to you, Miriam.
Hi, Miriam. Just to confirm, I think that the terracotta that we had here a couple Saturdays ago, maybe Bob can confirm this, but I think that it was a lower grade of the vinyl rather than the Ferrari. So I'm not sure everybody's looking at the same thing. Did you look at the Ferrari grade or the lower grade? Do you know?
I looked at the Ferrari grade.
Okay. Yeah, well, like that, the microphone.
Sure.
My understanding after reading this is basically you're recommending the, I think it was the gray in the black in the wedge shape. Okay, I just want to make sure that was. Come on up, Barbie.
I have a quick unrelated question regarding the fonts.
Sure.
Should, in the future, if we should decide to change the fonts, can you guide us to a company that can
Absolutely.
provide us with something different?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I did see last Saturday the vinyl, which was shown. I mean, that was the only color demonstration that we were able to look at. Is there a color book from the fabric that you are recommending? I have never seen it.
It's installed, is it that way correct? On the, I didn't know where the actually.
The colors are installed on the garages down at the end.
All of them?
Yes.
The two colors, not a few, just the two colors
colors.
and the two shapes in each color, right?
Okay.
Correct.
Okay, because I was very opposed to this umbrella that seemed to, the bird droppings seemed to cling on it, and it was a harsh color that went up in that one. So I'm very interested in this new fabric. It sounds wonderful to me. I really want to see it in the terracotta. And you got it up in the black, so that's good. But is there any way to see a piece of it in the terracotta? Because I saw something I liked the color of, but I agree it was plastic looking, which isn't wonderful. So
That's a discussion you'll have to have with the board.
it's not available here today.
No, we don't have it here today. We returned it to Discount Awnings.
Because that's an important piece in this huge decision. Thank you. Thank you for the
Absolutely.
So Kathy Conley picked this material up from Discount Awning.
Speak into the microphone.
Sorry.
Joseph, yes.
Joseph Seidenberg. Kathy Conley picked this up from Discount Awning, I think a couple of weeks ago. And can you tell me is this the material that you're talking about?
This is the lower grade, not the Ferrari fabric.
Okay, you're recommending the Ferrari fabric?
Correct.
Okay, so is there a Ferrari fabric that comes in a color, that color, or something very close to that color?
No. It's
Okay.
pretty, one's pretty pink and one's very red.
So nothing even close?
Nothing matches the roof.
Is this a 5-year guarantee versus a 10-year for the Ferrari? Is that part of
I
what the
believe
difference
that
is?
that was the major difference.
Okay, okay. I'm bringing this up because Kathy would have brought these herself, but she's out of town now. And I know a lot of people really liked the terracotta when it was up there. I know Ann and I liked it a lot. And I've talked to a lot of people here that I think like that probably better than anything that's been put up. Can I just get a show of hands of how many people liked the terracotta when it was up?
We didn't have the Ferrari vinyl up.
Right.
We had this umbrella
Right.
terracotta up. But yes, I like that too.
Understood,
No,
Bob.
no, not, I like this piece that we just looked at last Saturday.
That's the
That's it. That's it.
Yeah, you have the
But I
rust.
don't think we ever had a.
Well, it says terracotta on it, so,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
But
But
we never
that's what
had
somebody
an
wrote on it anyway.
actual awning made out of that. There was another rusty color that was.
That was the sunbrella. That was the sunbrella.
Okay.
It was not this one.
So the fabric that you're recommending then, or that you guys are recommending is, I understand it's a 10-year guarantee versus a 5-year guarantee?
Correct.
Okay, so this would be a 5-year guarantee fabric?
Correct.
And in the Ferrari fabric, we can't get a color that's anywhere close to this color, is that what you're telling us?
It's much different. Correct.
Much
It
different.
doesn't match the roof.
Okay, okay. And this is I'm assuming a less expensive fabric, right? This,
We don't think that was ever priced. I wasn't part of the pricing.
We never priced out, I don't think the building committee ever priced out a lesser quality vinyl.
okay,
We were surprised actually, or I was privy to their understanding that although we thought there would only be vinyls in 5- and 7-year warranties at best,
right.
all of a sudden they discovered Ferrari premium vinyl, which I think they have the only 10-year
10-year guarantee.
warranty, which obviously it makes sense to go.
Yeah, Mike's the
that
expert on the
Mike?
discount awning.
They did give us a quote on the 5 and the 10-year one, like go back to my records. Wasn't a big difference in price.
Okay.
A little bit more for the 10.
But as far as the color, it's not,
Boy, that sure looks like the 10-year Ferrari vinyl piece that I have.
okay,
It looks like it,
Okay.
based on my recollection.
I was just trying to gauge the interest for the terracotta because with all respect to you and your design skills, you know, we all are paying for this and we all have to live with this for the next 2 or 3 decades. And I mean, if this many people like the terracotta, maybe we should make more of an effort to at least have that on the ballot as a choice for everyone. So, thank you.
Other questions?
Yes.
And maybe I was wrong, but I thought that we were going to talk with you before you were going to go into what we were doing, so that we had some idea, and you had some idea what we were all thinking of and what we thought of. And I didn't know that that was something that was done, and I didn't know, was that something that we were going to do and we didn't do, or is this something that it just happened through?
No, I just met with members of the building.
Okay, so we never did anything for any, okay, so now we're doing that at this point, is that correct? Okay, because I assumed that we would all be speaking. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yes.
The other part of it is the shape. And so we've got the rounded and we've got the wedge shape. You're recommending the wedge.
Correct.
Generally speaking, I think most of us have been thinking that the rounded is more Mediterranean. So can you talk a bit about that?
I think if you look at the changes in styles over the years, that the rounded shape is not in today's trends and styles, even in the Mediterranean. Mediterranean style doesn't necessarily refer to the awning shape as much as it does the architectural details of the building, the walk-through, the breezeways, the archways, the columns. Mediterranean architecture is, you know, geared towards that kind of style. I don't think you would go look at an awning necessarily and say this is a Mediterranean awning or a, you know, old-fashioned, I don't know, style of awning. I think the style of awning is contingent upon the style of building and the shape, and the practical application is how you would make that determination of what looks best. Again, I think the oval awnings are they look great on commercial buildings. You know, my professional opinion that I don't think that they look like today's standards on a apartment complex or townhouse homes or community living that you would see anything built in the next 2 or 3 years with the rounded awnings. It's just not what people are doing. And if we push forward to 10 more years from now, I think the oval awnings are going to continue to look dated, and they're not timeless, unfortunately. Design trends change over years, and you know, you can stay exactly the same that it was forever and ever, or you can keep your property looking like other properties that are coming out so that you can stay competitive in the real estate market and your property values and whatnot.
Mr. Savato?
Yeah, I'll just speak up. 2 questions, please. Can you share with us another residential Mediterranean-style architecture condominium complex like ours that has the black wedge-shaped awnings? Can you give us an example of any that you're familiar with in the Sarasota area so that we could take a look at it and get a clear idea of how this will look?
All right. I don't know that I know the names of any of the buildings around here in Sarasota, unfortunately. I could go drive by some of the ones that I've seen out east in Lakewood Ranch. There's a few. Most places aren't really doing awnings anymore. They're doing structural, more contemporary, that look more like storefronts with the kind of cantilevered elements and like the metal rods that look like they're holding them up. I mean,
White, did you consider that type of approach?
I don't think it works in your application because you have too many different shapes and sizes, and I think it would look too busy, and it definitely doesn't look Mediterranean to do it that way.
So my question is again, can you tell me a specific building? Do you know any
I
by
can't.
name that you can share with us?
No, I can't.
Okay. Could you tell us any other Mediterranean style similar to this? There are lots of them that were built in the 80s, as you know, in Sarasota County, that you have done exterior design work on?
On the Beneva Place apartments, we updated about 5 years ago. Beneva Place.
Beneva Place?
Mhm.
Okay, that's presumably on Beneva.
It is. It's right
Okay,
down
so
the
that
street.
would be helpful. We could get that would be an example of.
I don't believe they have any awnings. They only have awnings on their, like, what do you call it, their clubhouse.
Okay, so you get.
Las Palmas has awnings, but only on their clubhouse. You know, I
Any
travel.
other residential Mediterranean in your portfolio?
Sure, but I wouldn't put anything with a rounded awning on it.
It would just give us, it would be helpful to know what other things that you've done. Could you just share the names of a couple of other developments?
Of my clients,
Of Mediterranean design exterior.
I've worked with several John Cannon homes that are all Mediterranean style in Lakewood Ranch and on Bird Key. 212 Bird Key Drive, we just totally undid all the Mediterranean looks by taking out all the arches and rounded awnings because the homeowner that bought it didn't want it to look that dated and look like 80s and 90s.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I had a couple of comments, and thank you, because your frame of work was, what is your recommendation? Okay, so a few things that just sitting back and having watched this proceed for a long time. If we go to originally 2 awning companies, and their recommendation was black. This is not something that you knew anything about. I think part of what you were asked to do, you didn't care if you recommended stripes with polka dots and purple. So that was, you were to come up with your best idea. It's so interesting to hear the Mediterranean look had no awnings. Because I think back of Kathy Connolly's email, we were talking about the colors, and if you look at the 2 buildings on that email, there are no awnings to be seen. And I found that fascinating. So I did more research on that, and yes, that in fact was the case, that there were no awnings. So I think that certainly that your recommendation is nowhere out of line with what two awning companies that have been in business for 80 years, both recommended. And the fact that it was very difficult when the building committee, and correct me if I'm wrong, either of you, when you went out looking, it was very difficult to find a community with awnings. So,
I'll speak after you.
Okay.
So it can be heard.
so anyway, thank you for your recommendations, and I found them very helpful.
And I'll just add one note on that too, that I actually did live in the Mediterranean. And I lived in Greece for quite some time, and I actually owned property in Greece. And we do not have awnings on any of the buildings there in Greece. And everybody thinks of the Mediterranean having these awnings. We have shades that roll out and they're flat. And almost everybody in Europe and Italy, Amalfi Coast, they have shades that you roll and they come out and they extend straight or straight down to cover your balcony during the sunny time, and then in the evening you roll them back up and they go away. That's a Mediterranean style. What makes the Mediterranean look of like the Amalfi Coast and everything so colorful is actually the painting of the buildings. And if you wanted to go into that look, you would have had to paint each building a different color and go into a whole different catastrophe of conversations, I'm quite certain, of whose building is going to be what color. And I don't think that that's a good look for your community either. And I think a great example of that would be that building on Bee Ridge Road, if you all are familiar with it, kind of near Tuttle and Shade, that looks like a gingerbread house. Back in 1985 or 1990, when they painted that, it was adorable. It was pink and green and yellow, and I used to drive by it and say, wow, that looks so cute. But for the last 5 years, I've been driving by it going, God, when are they gonna paint that building? It looks like 1985. It's just, it's tired, and it's a look that's tired. And I think that if you look around in other communities, you'll notice that the colored awnings are out of style and the rounded awnings are out of style. And so that's how I based my decision. Again, I didn't have, any input. It was picked from these colors, and that was the decision that I thought would be the best to make your community look cohesive and up to 2020 standards.
Going backwards to your question, Jerry Andrews, now deceased, Mike and myself, we all drove around independently around town to take pictures of residences with awnings. And we didn't find any. I took a couple of pictures in the neighborhood behind us where a few houses have put up their own awnings, but there's nothing through the community. And nothing in any of the gated communities or the mansions on the shoreline. I could not get to the back end of the mansions that faces the water, but on the front side of them, there wasn't, I think there was one house on Casey Key that has awnings. I was very surprised because I was hoping to come back with ideas. I also did take a cruise in the Mediterranean 2 summers ago, knowing this was going to come up. And what I found in the way of awnings is, well, in most of the cities that I stopped in, the residences were above retail. There was awnings on the retail, but not on the apartments above, or in some cases, the businesses above. They were mostly mixed-use buildings around the Mediterranean, not purely residential.
Mr. Sabato.
So, listening to what you just said, let me ask this question. Not that you were asked to make that decision in your design, but I'm going to ask you now. If you were to say, if I was to say awnings or no awnings, what would you say to that? Give me your opinion.
Without really diving into that, I would probably say that you're going to need something over the windows, awning or some other architectural element. Otherwise, you're going to lose. It's part of the design in your building, and if you choose to take that design element away, I feel like you'd need to replace it with something, whether it be some stonework or some kind of paint detail, some more trim around the windows, something. Otherwise, you're just going to end up with kind of flat, boring walls. And I think that the awnings were initially an important, impactful design element in this community, and if you chose to take them down, I'd probably say you need to put them back up with something. Now, that being said, I might look around and say, well, we really need this little tiny one over here. Is that really doing anything? And I've never really been inside a lot of the units here, so I don't know how they might function. And some people I know don't have any awnings, and some people might have several. And they might be greatly impacted by not having anything on the outside of their east and west facing windows, that they really might not like that very much. So there's a lot more factors to consider, I think, than just up or down.
As a sidelight, the first 4 buildings on this side do not have awnings right now. They were taken down last week.
I'll have to go check that out. You'd save a lot of money if you didn't put any awnings back up.
Other questions, comments, especially questions of Ms. Lancaster? I didn't realize you had spent substantial time in Greece and Italy. Interesting.
That's my name's Kathy Greek. My real last name would have been Slutikakos, had my dad not changed it when they moved to the United States.
There you go. I invite additional thoughts, questions, especially questions for Ms. Lancaster. Please come up.
Hi, Priscilla. If the terracotta material were available in this grade, would you have considered that?
No.
No. Okay.
The beauty of my job in this element was that I didn't have any personal connection to anything in here or anybody in here. So I, like I was asked, made my recommendation simply on what I thought was best for your design moving forward. So.
Other questions? Well, that was quick. So, okay, before Ms. Lancaster leaves, take advantage of her time, please.
Thank you. I'm particularly interested in the gatehouse, and it looks like there is a black trim right under the roof before you get to the.
There's not. That's just the
That's only in the
shadow
photo.
of your.
It's rather attractive, isn't it?
It is kind of nice.
I just wanted, the other thing that I want to mention on that picture. Yeah, looking at the picture of the gatehouse, I think the look where the wall color continues down to the ground is better than cutting it off with a border of white at the bottom.
Please, we have time.
So we talked about the color, we talked about the shape. The last thing is that scallop thing. You're saying, yes, we should have something. If we get awnings, would I be correct in thinking you'd say, don't do the scallops?
Explain why no scallops or prim, please.
I have a very big smile under here, by the way. I would say no scallop or French because it's just a very tired and dated look. And there, I mean, even if you decide to go with the terracotta, which is not my recommendation, please don't do the scallops. Please. I think that, like I mentioned earlier, keeping your property values and your aesthetics even with other communities in the area. Even if you're not planning on selling anytime soon, someone in your family might sell your unit if you're no longer here with us, or you might try to sell your unit in your lifetime, and your property values are extremely important. And if you keep something that's tired and dated on your building, when people come to look at it, they're gonna say that it's just not up to today's standards, and that's the first thing they see when they come in is the exterior of the building. So it's really important to keep that with today's trends and color schemes and popular opinion.
Marty, you look like you want to say something. You're poised on the edge of your chair. I knew it. I can read body language.
I just want to give Deborah my best side.
Just about there, Marty.
All right.
Go ahead.
I've heard you numerous times say that we want to keep up with property values and so forth. Have we considered the uniqueness of this community? Have you considered the uniqueness of the community?
Sure,
The oneness of
absolutely.
it as it stands?
Sure, it is a unique community in the sense that
Well, are there other unique communities like this, or is that a real negative?
I don't think it's, I think.
Watch, Marty.
I think the value of your uniqueness would be that you're in a wooded, small community that's not, there's a lot of other townhouse home areas in Sarasota, but they're not of this scale. I think that what's nice is that you have a nice, intimate, small setting here with a lot of nature surrounding you. And there are some other communities that are similar to that, but most of them have been plowed down and rebuilt with palm trees and not oak trees. And there's great value to having something that is unique, sure. But I think you don't want something that is unique in the sense that it is not meeting the standards of the design elements for today. When somebody goes to buy a unit and you say, okay, I'm looking in that $400,000 to $600,000 market, or not exactly up to speed on the value of your units, there's a lot of competition out there. There's a lot of brand new things out there, and when people see new and they see something that appears to look old, maybe it's not, but it's just not of a trend from today, something like the scallops, they think old. And when they think old, the value in their mind goes down immediately, even if it's new. And so that's just something to take into consideration as you move forward.
I'd like to say many people may know this from what I've said before. My wife and I looked for a condo here in the Sarasota area for over 3 years. We looked at a bunch of them. We fortunately had a good realtor that was patient and put up with us. And a few months ago, somebody asked me, well, why did you buy here in Fairway Woods? And they wanted to make the point about the Mediterranean look at the buildings and the awnings. And I say, I bought here in Fairway Wood despite the color of the buildings and the shape of the awnings. Of everything my wife and I looked at over a number of years, we came in here and the first thing that hit us was the landscaping. As Kevin said, there's so many properties we went to where the land was bulldozed, and then the tallest tree was barely taller than me. They were concrete jungles. We came here, it instantly looked different. Then we looked at the unit with the water features, with the lakes, the view that we had, the value, the square footage of these units compared to many others. And on the way home, we started talking, and my wife started writing down, as we do in many large decisions, pros and cons. There are quite a list of things we had on pros. There's one thing we had on cons. It was the color of the buildings. I bought here in Fairway Woods despite the color of the buildings and the shape of the awnings, because just as Ms. Lancaster has said, it's dated, it's old. Did I want to live, as I told my wife, I don't know if I want to live in a pink building with these round awnings. She said, you'll move down there, you'll relax, you'll be inside, you won't care. I care, but what she's saying is exactly true. Taking it from somebody who is looking not as a resident, but as a potential buyer, I came in here and fell in love with the landscaping and the community. I still bought despite what the buildings look like. We got an opportunity now to remove that and update the buildings. And I think what you're going to find is very quickly we're going to realize higher property values. So the decisions that are going to be made aren't going to be from the board. They're going to be from the community. Just make some wise decisions.
I agree with you. I also am saying that black or gray, and you've just said that it's not what you have in Greece. I happen to know Greece quite well. For at least 3 months, I've been every other day, or every day of the week. I'm sorry. Okay. I don't believe that any of the little things should be done, the little, whatever they have.
Scallops.
Scallops, right. But I also don't believe that yellow, gray or white is the way to go. I don't see that as something you would see. There's nothing in there that I see of it, and I would like to see the one we talked about with the
Terracotta?
Yes, and the reason I feel I also don't know that we need all of that, and that's another whole thing. That's not what you're talking about, and I understand that, okay? But I've also done a lot of things, and I feel that the gray and the black are not really. I think they do have a sense of it being much more possibly a time where people would be now. But I don't think that's where we're at right at this point. It's not that we're going to have something, if we do terracotta, that would look awful, as long as it wasn't with terracottas and it went well. And that's what I would feel. And I think that the fact that we are doing things done, that it's not white, it's a different kind of white, is great. But I also think that one thing I don't think we need all of this, but what we do need is to do it with terracotta, because that is what we are. And I don't think that we need the little things. And that's my opinion.
Thank you. Mr. Sabato, please.
Just to take the notion of the black one step further, would you, if we were to go with black, are there other items, like, say, for example, the doors, that you would paint black? Because I don't see any black in here now. The windows are not really black. The windows are kind of like this table. They're a brushed dark bronze. So right now, black is going. These are going to be the only black things. I hear your logic, but if we go that route, are there other things that should be black as well?
Sure, I think like I mentioned, you could do your street signs and some of the signage throughout the units. If you wanted to do some of these railings here, for instance, these wood railings coming in and out of the pool, you could do some of the gazebos out here, and I'd be happy to do.
Doors?
I'm sorry?
What about the doors? That could look very pretty too.
You could definitely do the doors, and I would be, if that's the direction that you want to go in and you want me to come by one day and meet with the building committee again and do a walkthrough, and we can make some decisions about more specifics like that to get us in the direction to help tie it all together, I'd be more than happy to do that. Again, what recommendation about the signage out front, kind of trying to bring in some of the black out there, I think is a great idea. And then there's lots of other elements that we could, moving forward, we can tie that in. Specifically, my scope, as I was asked, was to just focus on the awnings, kind of the signage and the items out front. But yes, I think that's a fabulous idea. Everything has a domino effect when you make a change, and you have to address those changes and put them into your plan as you move forward. I think you could definitely have black doors. I think you could definitely have pearl colored doors too to match the trim, and I think that would be very handsome. Those are some decisions that you can either ask for my advice on, or we can work with the building committee on, and I'd be more than happy to make some proposals or suggestions if you decide to move in that direction.
Marcia, I think.
I have to come up because Krista said we do have some black feathers. That's one thing I've noticed as soon as I saw the black awnings. We have the black lights, the lights on the buildings. We have the lights on the street lights. That just brings it out. When I realized that, and again, the windows around to trim, to me, look black. Maybe they're not exactly at this point, but they look black. But the lights and the lights on the buildings are black, and I think that just brings it all together.
Joseph, please.
As far as the shape of the awnings, forget the fact that I hear what you're saying, that the rounded ones are kind of dated now and kind of done. But we have on all these buildings, we have, they're so angular, and we have the extruded trim on the side of the building, at the bottom of the building. all of the windows have extruded elements around them. And so, just from a design perspective purely, do you not feel that the more rounded awnings kind of soften all those angles a little bit?
I just personally don't think the rounded awnings look good in this application.
Okay. All right, thanks.
Others, please. Robert.
I wanted to quickly explain the difference between 5-year and 10-year vinyl. The warranty is essentially on color fastness. And they're saying the 5-year vinyl will fade faster. And depending on your access to the sun, some will fade faster than others. Those in full sun could fade out in 3 or 4 years, and those that are in full shade might last 30 years without fading. It's not a strength of the vinyl. I think the tensile strength is probably essentially the same, although the Ferrari vinyl is millimeters thicker than some of the others. It's a thicker vinyl. I think, I'm not sure that was ever stated and anybody knew what the difference between a 5 and a 10-year warranty is. Some of our awnings are 35 years old, the fabric and the frames. The frames, as long as you don't take them off the wall, are structurally sound, and we're doing an analysis of future costs, and I'm going to ask that the frames be considered to be a 40-year property, but the coverings, a 20-year on average property, and that they will fade out and be replaced. We're buying extra fabric, so if any of them rip, we can recover them in the same vinyl. These dye lots are not the same. So we're taking some precautions, but it's basically color fastness that you're buying with a 10-year warranty versus a 5-year warranty. You have a question for me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Are you saying then that the first 10 years they'll repair or replace anything that's color faded?
The manufacturer will replace to the people who built them for us the fabric. We'll still have to pay the labor for reupholstering them. The fabric is about 30% of the cost of the awning. The rest of it is essentially labor and then the metal to make the frames. But we'll get a replacement of fabric in the first 10 years.
Okay. All right, and then the metal, in previous replacements, we replaced the metal and the awning itself, the whole deal, ever since the beginning, or just the fabric? That's what
I have repaired 7 awnings in the last 7 years. It has always been the fabric. The only time an awning comes apart, and it did now, they're reaching that point, they're 35 years old.
Right.
And when we took one off the wall, it fell apart.
But have we replaced anything that's fallen apart when we took it
Not
off?
in the last 7 years.
Okay.
Yeah, I can't speak for before that.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am, please go. Hank, please. You haven't spoken yet.
I just wanted to get this on the table. One of the options that we're going to be looking at is the burgundy awnings. I'd just like to see a show of hands here. How many people think that they clash with the roof and the rest of the building?
They clash.
Yeah. I mean, I think they don't go at all. I just wanted to bring that up. And it is an option that's on the, on the thing.
Please. Please come forward, use the mic so we can hear you better. You have something important to be heard.
My thinking is that we're going to be taking the awnings down, we're going to be painting the buildings and so forth. That gives us the opportunity to look at it, what it looks like without awnings, period. And that might be an option. I'm not so sure that they're that important for all the light because we have so many trees around our place that a lot of places are in the shade to begin with. It certainly would save a huge amount of money, and you can always add them after you see that if you really think it's important.
Thank you. Other questions, comments?
May I make a comment?
Yes, let me bring the microphone over to you.
Okay, Jeanette?
I disagree with that last comment.
facing east and south. They are absolutely necessary to have awnings or some sort of a cover. We already have indoor blinds, but it's absolutely necessary for upstairs units to have the awnings. They do serve a purpose. And I know those that have the western exposure, such as building 3, that in unit, it's extremely necessary to have the awnings. So I'm not for that at all.
Thank you, Jeanette. Kevin.
With the awnings, I think architecturally, you would have to replace them, because when you take them down, that horizontal bar goes across, there's a break for the awning, and then there's a small piece that continues. I don't know how, if you look, it just doesn't, on the ones that have been removed, it doesn't make sense to have those breaks unless you're gonna fill those in.
That's what I was saying, once you take something down, you have to address it.
Because it was done
Whether it's
purposefully.
stone detail.
Yeah, that was just something that I,
Thank you. More. I invite other commentary, questions of Ms. Lancaster. We have 5 minutes before we can adjourn to go to the next board meeting, meeting. Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to affirm what you were saying about having a cohesive design. And so if there's, I think because that hasn't really been addressed, like how would this be different? Would it be brown? Would we keep burgundy? Where would we make these things? If we just have like black awnings and that's it, I don't know, it seems like there's commas on the buildings or something without tying things together. So I think some additional thought about how to tie that together. And I think that a part of, at least for me, when I think about the terracotta, it ties together the roof, and it sort of brings that down. And the steps. Yeah, and so I think that that's a part of the appeal. So it sort of seems to me like it's just like black, and then what else? So that's something else that needs to be addressed. So you're right about that.
In the last 3 minutes, speak now or forever hold your peace until the next meeting. Hearing none at this moment, we'll resume this part of this discussion at the board meeting. So I think I'll adjourn the town hall meeting. Thank you all for coming. Thank you, Ms. Lancaster, for an interesting presentation.